So, you are Kristen Lovell. And you are a Peabody winner and a GLAAD winner. And what other awards have you gotten?
Oh my God. This has been a interesting, rewarding year. It started off with the Sundance Award for documentary and clarity of vision, special jury, because we were like second place. And then we got a few, like the John Selinger Award. We got SNMAL Award, the GLAAD Media Award, Peabody Award. Yeah, it's been an interesting year.
So impressive and such a wonderful film, The Stroll. When did you think that making a movie would help you, making a documentary would help you come to terms with all that you had to experience in that life?
I think it started when I became a subject of a documentary. I think even a little bit before then, because the media was starting to take interest in homeless trans youth. And when we started filming Queer Streets, I really didn't want, the goal then was not to be visible. You know, the goal was to just blend in, or try to blend in if you could, you know, but that wasn't a reality for me at that time. And so when I was working with Samantha Box, one of the photographers, you know, I knew it was important to document what was happening, and sharing the stories. And there were so many homeless youth running around in the streets of New York who were thrown out of their homes and experiencing sex work. And so I knew it was important to raise the awareness of these situations. And so, you know, when that happened, though, we also realized that we didn't really have agency over our stories. You know, somebody comes into our community, tells our stories for us, and I became motivated to tell our stories, to, you know, to share our stories, and to be a filmmaker. Filmmaking was one of my affinities since I was a kid. You know, I grew up in a house full of VHS and movies and, you know, cable TV and stuff, and it just was something that was always with me. Like, the very first toy that I remember having is a Fisher Price thing that showed Mickey Mouse in a haunted house, you know, and that's when I knew I loved film. And my godmother growing up, she also loved film. She would do like videography stuff, like she would do weddings and photography and stuff. So I was always with her, and so we shared the same kind of hobby, you know. And when I started transitioning, I didn't, you know, you get older, you lose your dreams sometimes, you know, and as I transitioned, I just knew that, or felt that that dream would never happen because of how society ostracizes us and keeps us in a particular box. And but then I started to know, as the media attention started to ramp up on trans lives, there was a lot, especially like 2000, between 2006 and 2009, there was a period where the media was just completely relentless on destroying the image and the character of transness. You know, like putting out like the most blatant and derogatory, racist, you know, transphobic material that you could possibly find. Right? And I got so upset. I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm tired of them doing this. You know what I mean? So I went and I was like, you know, I had gotten, we used to have this thing called the Trans Health Conference in Philadelphia, and I wanted to present about the media's attack on trans people. And I didn't want a boring PowerPoint presentation. I needed something that was going to be visually gripping to anger the community. Like, we can talk about it forever. But you have to see it compiled in order to know that this is harming us. This perpetuates violence against us. This is why people point and jeer at us when they see us in the streets. And it was a rinky-dink documentary. The point was to show like a compilation of how the media is portraying the trans community. And I thought there was going to be like 5 people in a room, and that wasn't the case. When I got there, though, they had given us the largest room in the convention center, and there were like 100 and something people waiting for me. Now, me coming from Sylvia's Place, I'm used to just the young people in the shelter.
Well, say what Sylvia's Place is.
Oh, Sylvia's Place was New York City's only emergency shelter for homeless LGBT young people.
And it was named after?
It was named after Sylvia Rivera, one of the instigators of the Stonewall Revolution. And so, I get there and we're showing it, and it was so powerful because of the conversation that it brought back. There was a young man there whose wife was trans, was murdered in their home, and he spoke about that, and we really started talking about the impact of media at the time, and we left that alone. You know what I mean? Like, I put it on YouTube, like, months later, when YouTube was able to go beyond 5-minute videos. And it got, like, 14,000 views. And there were conversations being had about it. And then we got to the tipping point. Laverne, popping out on Orange is the New Black, and this change and the shift in trans representation in the media. And then, of course, Caitlyn Jenner came in. And those were 2 very big, pivotal moments for media representation for the trans community. And I went on to make other little episodes for the Trans and Media series, just to show like how the changes happen, the impacts on the community, from the very first one to the last one, which was very empowering, but we were still dealing with murder. These were things that were still impacting our
especially in the trans women of color.
Yes. And, so I went to the Whitney Biennial in 2019, and, back when I was younger, in my early days of the Stroll, when I first started, I was part of a group called the New Neutral Zone. And another group that we started called FIERCE, which meant Fabulous Independent Educated Radicals for Community Empowerment. And we were making a documentary. We were going to make a documentary. And at the time, I was the youth leadership organizer. And my task was to go find Stonewall veterans. And so I remember I called the Stonewall Veterans Association, and I got in contact with the guy who would drive the Stonewall Mobile. And he was a little kooky. And he was from my hometown in Yonkers. We were a group of young people of color, so we wanted to meet and hear from Stonewall veterans of color. And that's how we were introduced to Sylvia Rivera, and she came in and she gave, an interview about, the piers and her fight on the piers, living as a homeless trans woman on the piers, her days in Stonewall. And so she was always around us group of young people in her last couple of years of her life. I was there, marching with her during the Amanda Milan marches and protests. And so, yeah, but when you're a young person and you're in these situations, you don't really think about your elders in a particular way, And so I was grappling with what I was grappling with, and I know she saw that in me, that, all the experiences that she experienced, that we, and like how many years later, are still experiencing the same things. And then when she passed, it was a blow to our community. Me and Kate Barnhart laugh all the time about how when her funeral was happening, I was going through some legal issues, and she escorted me to Ward's Island, which was where they told me to go live, because I was very feral. I couldn't stay put in a shelter. You know what I mean? So it was like they wanted to like keep dibs on me or whatever. But I would go to that shelter and I would break free from there every night. And so, you know, I would just like sign in bed and then poop and then go right back down to the stroll. But we were laughing about how, you know, not laughing, but reminiscing about how that day I made Kate miss Sylvia's funeral. But, flash forward, that film was being showed at the Whitney Biennial 2019, and I ran into my producer, Matt Wolf, who was also a part of that documentary back then that I didn't know. He was working at Paper Tiger. I'd never met him. And so we got to talking, and Jim Farrat was there. I don't know if you know who Jim Farrat is.
Who is Jennifer Rock?
Jim Farrat.
Oh, Jim Farrat.
Yeah.
That name I've heard, but...
Yes, he was also at Stonewall and, you know, was part of the Gay Liberation Front. And he had a film there which was about his arguments with the trans community, which I found to be highly hilarious. Because, you know, and I hear from a lot of people that Jim has always been problematic to the trans community.
As are many gay men of a certain age.
Yes. And so, you know, he was there, whatever. And I was, you know, explaining to the room that, you know, the Whitney is built right on top where trans women would sleep in cardboard boxes along this row where your shiny new museum is built. And that you need to be telling these stories, you know. And I left, you know, and didn't think anything of it. And then I got a call from Matt. He reached out and was like, oh, we should talk. And we were talking about my dream of filmmaking. You know, I did the Arts Academy at Lincoln Center. And I had just got finished co-producing a film called The Garden Left Behind. And he was like, share with me your vision of what type of film you would make, you know? And then I was just coming out of narrative. I wasn't thinking about doing docs, you know? And so I was like, okay, we can try documentary, you know? Like, and so then he left me alone for a while. He was like, he mentioned something about a treatment, and I didn't hesitate. I was like, let me get this treatment out and get it to him and see what happens. And so I went, you know, doing all of my research and how to write a treatment. And so I wrote him a treatment and I gave it to him, and he left me alone for a while. And then we're in the throes of the pandemic and all hope was lost. And then there was this glimmer of light, and it was Matt calling me to let me know that some people wanted to talk to me about my film idea. And I'm like, okay, who wants to talk to me? And he's like, Sarah Rodriguez from HBO. And I was like, that's a big deal. Like, what does HBO want to talk to me about? And so I met with them, and they were excited to speak with me, and were so supportive in my vision that they helped me with the early development funds of, you know, creating a sizzle and, you know, getting archival materials together, and they loved it. And like 2 weeks after that, boom, they greenlit us, and we went and did the deep dive into the stroll.
So now that we're back at the stroll, you were talking about that Sylvia's Place was the only place for young LGBTQ, particularly trans children, youth, to live. How did you end up there?
Well, like I said, I was part of the neutral zone, and
But how did you leave Yonkers?
oh, like that's before history?
Yeah.
Like before transition?
Or leading to?
Well, you know, I've always been me, right? I got into a really big fight with my mother's husband, and I left home, and I went to Covenant House. So, like, I was in youth shelters way before I was working in one. And so I went to Covenant House and it was a shelter for runaway youth in general. And I was there for a couple of years until I aged out. And at that time, that's where I started transitioning. And that's where I started working the stroll. And so when I finally aged out, I had gotten involved with other youth programs, and that's when I got into, which was Project Reach. And then that turned into Fierce because us group of queer kids didn't like the policies and things that were going on there, and we were supposed to be a youth-run organization, and the adults were still had all the power and the control. We were like, well, we're gonna go start this, and we did, and Fierce became a formidable force in the late 90s, early 2000s, well, the early 2000s, and yeah, so then there was my crazy life of just the stroll living and being in the West Village Meatpacking District. And 5 years had elapsed and I lost all my connections with people and stuff because my time and my life got so wrapped up in 14th Street. And one of my friends, Jessie from Fierce, was like, you should go to Sylvia's place. Kate is over there and she's the director and she might be able to help you get a job. And I was like, I don't think they're gonna hire me,
And why did you think that?
Because I was sex working, I was homeless, usually in those positions they wanted somebody with a college education, social work background, all that stuff. So I just didn't believe it, right? But I would go and volunteer. Sylvia's place helped clean me up. I got off the drugs that I was using. And I began working and finding purpose. I used to run a trans empowerment group for street-based sex working young people. And so it was 5 years after, I started working there 5 years after Sylvia passed away. So remember I was telling you, there was a time when I had to go to the place. 5 years since then, I ended up working at Sylvia's place, and I stayed there for 10 years.
And do you have a relationship with your family now?
Yeah.
And it's a good relationship?
Yeah, for the most part.
For the most part? So you've been back to Yonkers?
Yeah. I was always in Yonkers. My godmother happened to be, but she was in the closet. And, during that time after 9/11, and while I was sex working, and she was dealing with complications of diabetes and stuff, I stayed with her for a little while, and she knew I was sex working, and, we had our issues about it, but we gotta eat.
And I take it that she was also sympathetic.
Yeah, she was.
And you still shared the love of film.
Yes, we did. Yes, oh my God. Speaking of those days, she used to make me watch Holiday Heart over and over again. She was always watching that movie, and I'm like, why are you watching this? I have no intentions of being like Ving Rhames. Okay? But it was her favorite movie. That was so weird. But there was that time, and because I did go to Yonkers after 9/11, I was terrified. I had watched the whole fucking thing. So it was like, okay, it's time for me to get out of this city. I don't know what's gonna happen. You know what I mean? I couldn't, so I would go up to Yonkers to feel a little bit safer. If a bomb dropped or something, I'd be out of the blast radius.
I want to survive, so I'll go to Yonkers.
Right. So I would go there, but then I would go back and forth, and some nights I would walk from Yonkers all the way to the Bronx to get on the train just to go down to the Meatpacking District. But it's funny, though, but how we got to the stroll, right? Getting to the stroll.
You can go to the stroll, or you can talk about anything that you want. We're really interested here in who you are.
Right. I'm still on stroll interviews, sorry.
No, that's okay. It's a big part of your life. and certainly a very successful part of your life. But it is the totality of your life that got you there. And it's the totality of your life that is going to be the cornerstone of what you do subsequent to the stroll. And these oral histories really help us introduce you to other people so they know what they have in common with somebody who has come from a difficult youth, in some respects, most definitely, and found success. And what do they share with you? And what do you have in that history that you want to share with other people?
Perseverance. I think, we hear all these words, right? Perseverance, resilience, and strength. And, that's not always what it was. I think a lot of the times that I was out there, I was very, very vulnerable.
How scared were you?
I was learning to be a daredevil. I explain it a lot of times where, as young people, and we're exploring ourselves and stuff, right? We're not privy to all the things that are out there. You know what I mean? So when we do become exposed to the reality, the bigger picture of like life on Earth, and take away the fantasy of youth, right? We have to unlearn all of the things that we were taught. And sometimes we have to, let's say, for me anyway, it was like loosen our morals, or our moral compass becomes impacted, right? Things that you would turn your nose up to before you find yourself doing. You know what I mean? It's like another awakening.
A survival instinct kicks in.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, it does. It does. And I feel lucky, and I say this all the time, because I have a very interesting perspective. I got to see what the world was like and how they treated us. I'm like the last generation of that, right? But I also have the view of seeing all of these amazing changes, and finally seeing transness being a conversation, something that's being acknowledged, and having, like, I'm starting to see where it's no longer the girls getting kicked to the curb and can't work and are expected to be failures. Now I'm seeing all of these success stories.
Tony Award winners, Grammy Award winners.
Right. And that's
Peabody Award
right.
winners.
Like, that's what it's supposed to be. No one should be left behind if we're a country, right? And why? When we complain about homelessness, but we're also the ones perpetuating it and making it happen for others. You know what I mean? So it's like.
So where do you fit in that historic picture? It's interesting that you see yourself on that border of having seen the way it was and having seen the way it's become. There are obviously still problems.
Oh, yeah.
How do you, when you see those problems, look at your past and say, well, this is how we might solve those?
It's hard. It's a hard question to ask, because when I think about it, it's like, I'm not as afraid as, say, people that are younger than me. Because I already seen the worst end of the stick. You know what I mean? I've already been incarcerated for being that black trans woman walking down the street. I've already been, like, unhireable, homeless, addicted to cope, Now, a rollback, I don't know what that would look like, because I had to fight to get hormones. I had to go do something strange for a little change to get a $150 bottle of estrogen, every few weeks. We didn't have like adequate health care. I have it now, you know, and I was the one knocking on the door in the early days of like the Count Lord clinic of give me my hormones, you know, but like them rolling back protections or rolling back healthcare, I've seen that before. I've seen it before, you know, and I don't know. I don't know. I mean, most likely the girls will be back in the streets again. Hopefully we'll have some more Republican clientele because we've been missing them. And then
did they pay better?
You know, so who knows? It might, you know, because I was just thinking about this and what's the name? I'm about to crack a joke. But we know Trump love hoes. He loves the hoes. Maybe he'll be nice to us. Okay. Joke ending.
So, how did you first get back with your mom?
How did I get back with my mom? I mean, you mean how did we rebuild our relationship?
Yeah.
I think, you know, with the shift, I don't want her to hear this either. My mother does not like me talking about her on anything.
She's not going to hear you.
But she made that abundantly clear with Queer Street years ago. Don't be on TV talking about me. But,
Usually a really good indication that she does want to know that you're talking about her.
But, I think, you know, as we gotten older and stuff, and as I become comfortable in my transition, I mean, there were things that were said to me, like, oh, I won't call you that name until your IDs change. Don't play with me. You know what I mean? And so, there were things like that. It took time. It takes time. Because you're reintroducing, like, I don't like to say reintroduce because I have never changed. I have been the same person. I mean, now that I'm older, I wear makeup. You know, my breath grew, but I am the same person. I am the same. It's the same personality. It's the same person. You know, you're just seeing me with some lashes on and my hair done. That's it. But me as a person, there has not been a personality shift. I'm the same person. So you didn't lose anything. It's not like you're talking to a completely different person, you know? So it's like, you know, I had to ease her into it because she has old way mentality on transness or looking because we transition, we're automatically failures or worrying about what the other person is thinking about you. But she dealt with this all my life because I've always been feminine. It's always been the elephant in the room was my femininity and why I am the way that I am. You know what I mean? And so it really wasn't a big jump. It really was not a big jump. And I think now since I've transitioned, it's so weird. People that were my friends that are no longer my friends because I transitioned, right? And then there were people who could not stand me before I transitioned who are now my friend.
The world is a strange place.
It is. You know, like I just recently was talking to my high school crush, which was crazy to me. And I'm like, oh, here you go in my inbox after so many years. And, you know, and it's like, but what he did though was solidify what I already knew. That you were feeling me too when we were in high school. You know? And we just never acted on it. You know? And so I hope that works with the person I have a crush on now. And
you're not in high school anymore.
No, but and then sometimes you get that. Like there are people you know, they're mad because I'm trans and wish I would detransition to be, you know, it's stuff like that. So I mean, I'm comfortable and happy with myself. I was just telling a friend of mine, I'm the most happiest I've ever been in my life. You know? Yeah. I just right now, I know I'm that girl. And nothing is going to...
Well, you did it yourself. To a large extent, you did it yourself. Yes, people helped you with getting funds to do this or that.
Yeah.
But the creativity, the story, the experience is yours.
Yes, I had a very good team. I had a very good team on The Stroll. Zachary and Matt and Mel were like, we were in the trenches together, you know? So that was an experience. And yeah.
What is it like when you go...
And everything.
Right. What is it like when you go back to the old neighborhood that has changed so dramatically?
I'm always in the neighborhood, and I'm very vocal about how this looks like shit. It doesn't really look like shit, but I just say it looks like shit. Just to, like, you know, show that I have some disdain for it. But I was just, like, over there yesterday, and I was looking at that stupid beach that they put over there where the salt mines used to be. And the salt mines was a spot where trans women lived. Like in the salt mines where they would store salt and live in the back of garbage trucks. Yeah. So now it's a $75 million beach when the city could have used $75 million for housing and healthcare for trans young people and all the homeless people on the streets. Maybe an apartment building or something. You know what I mean? Like, I think it was just a gross waste of money.
But they didn't have to leave it the way it was either.
I mean, that's where they kept the garbage trucks. Who cares? You know, like, that's where the garbage trucks were. That's what we always knew, you know, is that's where the garbage trucks were. But that whole, you know how they did the pier.
Absolutely.
You know, how the Hudson River Trust did the pier up, and now it stretches all the way there. The same thing that they're doing to the High Line, and now it stretches up to 34th Street. But what I'm saying is, like, I get beautification and having nice things, but we don't have nice things when our homeless are still running around struggling, and we got to look at them and smell them.
So
in the streets.
It is still the priorities.
Yeah. Like, clean that up first and then spend $75 million on a beach. When you could spend $75 million to put these people in one of these empty apartment buildings or office spaces that you have here, so we don't have to see them in the subway. Maybe they'll be a little happier because they got somewhere to live. You know what I mean? And you won't know unless you try.
But just like you at Sylvia's place or at the other places that you were, it was also the wraparound services that help. And you came off drugs.
That was all me, though.
I didn't say it wasn't. But you were in a safe place.
I was in a safe space to feel like it was me. I needed to change. I could not live like that. That was not going to be my life. I didn't want to be the age that I am at now, doing the same shit that my people have been doing for generations.
But not everybody is as strong as you.
No, they're not.
And they need support and help.
They do need support. But that's what I've been saying. You need to have spaces. Like,
absolutely.
We only had 16 beds. We were taking care of hundreds of young people every day. You can't do that on 16 beds. You know what I mean? There's the Ali Fournier Center, and they have different sites and all that other stuff. But is it really doing enough? You know what I mean? It's like so much like the what they put into, the energy they put in for policing and all this other stuff, they could put that same energy into making sure they're housed, have food, enrichment and vocational programming, so that they have a sense of worth and may want to get themselves up out of the situations that they're in. When you're continually bombarded upside the head saying that you are worthless and you are nothing, that's the persona that you're going to take on.
Absolutely.
And so it's important to, like, you know, one of the main reasons why mental health is an issue in this country among the homeless, because they're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting enough food.
No question.
The minute you are able to rest, and I used to say, this is what I used to do with my kids, because it was like, oh, They gotta be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And they can't come back until 9. And we don't care what they do when they're out in the streets. And I'm like, no. I'm gonna take Saturday. And that's a sleeping day. Because the reason why they're running around here so nasty is because they need to fucking sleep. Okay? They need sleep. And as soon as they get some sleep, and once I started doing that, they were the most nicest things in the world. I didn't have to do too much on discipline because all they needed was a nap. A nap. And some place to relax and feel safe. That's it. It's not hard.
No, it's I remember when I was much younger, there was a very good-looking young man, maybe older than me, and he was homeless. And I remember seeing him about 5 years later, and he looked like he had aged 40 years, 50 years, and was talking and throwing his arms around and scaring people. Because 5 years on the streets of New York, he literally was sleeping under garbage on 14th Street.
And this is what I think about myself, and I always think about, I suffer from a lot of survivor's guilt. Because what is it me that got me out of that? What about my willpower that got me out of that mindset to win a Peabody? You know what I mean? It's like, and it's not easy. It's not easy. And a lot of people are like, oh, and you're just so sane. Like, how do you experience all of that and be sane? And like, it's yeah, to make sure that I keep my head on, screwed on straight. Yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And, but I always say it though, it's sleep. 5 years on the streets of New York, with no sleep, wondering where you're going to get your next meal. You're constantly hyper-vigilant because you don't know who's going to attack you. You don't know you're going to get killed or whatever. It keeps you in this constant state of survival. And lack of sleep, you're going to and drug use. Of course you're going to be bugged out. But how, and it saddens me because when I look at people, I'm like, that are on the street and they're, there, like even in homelessness in America, there's classism. You know what I mean? You have your designer homeless. That's what they used to call us, homeless LGBT youth. We were designer homeless because you couldn't tell that we were homeless because of the clothes we wore or whatever, And so then looking at the ones that are just plopped on the floor there and everybody's walking over them, what gets that person to that point? What is it about them that they have to live like that? It's saddening. And I've seen, over the years, and especially working with street-based people, we lost a lot of people throughout the years. There should be no way in hell all these young people are dying before me. You know what I mean? People that I've taken care of at certain points, and they're no longer here. It's sad. I just want to, get to a point or live to see a point where we don't have to worry about these things. This is it's just, I most likely won't, but, we tried.
Could you ever imagine making a documentary about solving the homeless problem?
It's not even about a documentary. It's about our politicians.
I know that, but you said very clearly when we started this conversation that you made a documentary on how the media looked at trans people. Mm-hmm. And you knew that would potentially wake people up to what was going on. And right now, with the homeless crisis growing and growing and growing, people aren't waking up. They're trying just to avoid it, trying to put on blinders so that they don't see it. Pass laws that you remove homeless people and push
Right.
them somewhere else. It would seem that your experience, your voice, is one that is so strong, and you have demonstrated such inner strength and compassion. The Stroll was an unbelievably compassionate film, without any saccharine, without any sentimentality. That's one of the reasons it is so good. And I'm just wondering if you would ever think of doing something on other issues that are of concern to you based on your life experiences and your convictions and caring for other people.
That's a good question. I think about it. I mean, right now, I'm kind of looking into some more stuff, possibly working on a new film or two. So I'm not there yet. But maybe I got to see how the future's gonna play
Certainly.
out. You know, especially after this year. We'll see what by next decade.
So if you had your ultimate dream, what would things look like in 5 or 10 years from
My
now?
ultimate dream growing up, because I remember dangling my legs out the window of our apartment building. I wasn't gonna jump, I wasn't that stupid, but I would do it because it felt good, and I wasn't gonna fall out the window. But I would look, and I would see, like, especially in the 80s, when there would be, like, empty lots with debris and garbage and junk in it and stuff. And I always had this vision of the future, right? And of course, we had the future of the flying. I don't care about flying cars. It's just, that always sounded stupid to me. but like, just, I don't want to say a utopia. I don't want to sound corny, but like, I always never understood why there were people hungry when I would go to the supermarket, though, and there was like food everywhere. And I just didn't understand why people would have to go hungry, and especially then listening about, oh, we're the richest country in the world. And I'm like, but how is that? But it looks like shit. You know what I mean? And now, like, especially growing up in Yonkers, I go back and I see the gentrification that's happening, and I see where all the focus is. It's all along the waterfront, and they're forgetting everything else in the back. The one we used to have the nice view of the Hudson River, it's now obscured with these new crazy ugly buildings that they put in front of it that's supposed to be the new Yonkers. It's stuff like that. Like, I want to see improvements. To be honest, I think the meatpacking district today is beautiful. I like it. You know what I mean? Like, it's really nice. Maybe that. Granted, I lived the life of the stroll and stuff, and I thought it was fun. I was a teenager. You know what I mean? But now as an adult, I want different things. You know what I mean? I don't want to end up back on the streets. It may be a possibility. You never know the way things are. So I don't know. I'm in this weird point in time. Like, I know that I have enough in me that if it had to boil down to that I could do it. But I'm not trying to do that again. You know what I mean? And so I'm in this weird space again, sort of like not a crossroads, but I don't know what the future, I have no clue what the future is going to hold now. But June is not over yet. And I just got back from Los Angeles with this Peabody. I'm still trying to process that and figure out what are the next steps. I've come into this world that I didn't even imagine to this capacity, like thinking about trans and media like 14 years ago now, and it's like, to a Peabody is crazy. Not to say that the story in itself deserves a Peabody. It is a story that matters. You know what I mean? But like, I just never I can't say I've never thought because I want to push so hard to get where I'm at. Like, I don't know. I'm in a weird space right now. I'm in a weird space. I'm trying to figure it out. It's only been 3 weeks.
Well, all I can say is I'm glad you're at the happiest you've ever been. I hope that you never, ever lose that feeling. And it has been a delight to have you in Fort Lauderdale all these times that you've now been here. And you are a lightning rod for good things. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.